Yes, greetings dear candidates. It is a pleasure learning and teaching you this day. Basing on our previous lesson, we looked at refraction of light. And I remember that we say the refraction of light is the bending of light rays. The bending of light rays, especially as they move from one transparent medium to another, but of different optical densities or of different densities. Now, during that previous lesson, I remember it was handled by Mr. Mutusa Franco. He told you that we have got the law of refraction of light. And under that, he said that the incident ray and the refracted ray are on opposite sides of the normal. And that is what he taught you. And he went ahead to teach you the effects of refraction of light. And under that, he gave one effect, and he talked about a pencil or a stick dropped in a container of water appearing bent. That happens because of refraction of light. Look at the situation or a scenario of a swimming pool, where you go to a swimming pool and you look at it as if it is shallow. Dear children, that swimming pool is not actually shallow. It is appearing shallow simply because of refraction of light. We also talked about mirage. And under that, we said that mirage is just an illusion of water appearing on the rod. And that happens because of refraction of light. So, our dear candidates, that is what we looked at in that lesson. So, today, we are going to look at something new. It is our new lesson, but still related to refraction of light. What is that, dear candidates? Let's just look at this. So, we would like to talk about dispersion of light. Dispersion of light. What do we mean by dispersion of light? First of all, when we talk about dispersion of light, we are basically talking about light, special light that we call white light. Special light that we call white light. Now, what do we mean by white light? That is light that is coming from the sun. This is what we call white light. So, white light contains colors, and these colors are 7 in number. But for those colors to be separate, by then you cannot see the 7 colors of white light coming from the sun. But for them to be separate, there must be what we call dispersion of light. What do we mean by dispersion of light? Dispersion of light is the splitting of white light into 7 distinct colors of a spectrum. Into 7 distinct colors of a spectrum. Now, when we talk about a spectrum, we are referring to the 7 colors that make up white light. Let's just look at this question. What is white light? Dear candidates, when we talk about white light, it is simply light from the sun. White light is light from the sun. Now, we have said that dispersion is the splitting of white light into 7 colors of a spectrum. Now, what is a light spectrum? A light spectrum is a band. A light spectrum is a band of 7 distinct colors of white light. Remember, from the beginning, I said that white light comes from the sun. But that light contains 7 colors. Now, when those colors are in a group, we call them a spectrum. We call them a spectrum. So what is a light spectrum? A light spectrum is a band of 7 distinct colors of white light. What do you mean by distinct? Distinct means each color is different from the other. each color is different from the other. So that's what we mean by a spectrum. A band of 7 distinct colors of white light. Now, let us go ahead to look at the colors that make up a light spectrum. Colors that make up a light spectrum. Yes, some of you already know these colors, but remember that not all colors make up a light spectrum. We have specific colors of white light that make up a light spectrum. And one of those colors is red. The other is orange. Another one is yellow. The other is green. We have blue. We also have another color of a light spectrum that we call indigo. And lastly, we have a color that we call violet. So, when we have those colors, they are the ones, those are the colors of white light. They are the colors of white light. Those colors of white light are the ones that we call a light spectrum. So we have red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. We can write them. Red, we represent it with that color, with the letter R. Orange, we represent it with that color. We also have yellow, we can represent it with that color. We also have green, represented with that. Blue, represented with that. Indigo, represented with that color. And lastly, we have violet, represented with that. Now, if we read from the top, we shall read it as Roy Beef. Roy Beef. Roy Beef standing for red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Some of you have sisters called violet. That is great. Now, dear children, what do you think causes dispersion of light? We have said dispersion means splitting of white light into 7 colors of a spectrum. What makes white light to split? Or what makes white light to spread into 7 different colors of a spectrum? The major cause of that is what we learned in our previous lesson, and that is refraction of light. Refraction of light is the one that causes dispersion of light. If white light is moving from a less dense medium to a dense medium, that means its speed changes, or its speed reduces, and in the process of the speed reducing, light or white light is bent, and as it is bent, each color of a spectrum bends at a different angle. We have got a color that can be refracted most, and then we have that bends slightly. So refraction of light causes dispersion. What causes dispersion of light? Refraction of light. Now, we have got materials that can disperse light, or materials that can split light into the 7 colors. What are those materials? Here, we basically have glass prisms. When white light passes through a glass prism, that glass prism splits white light. And when white light is split, it separates into 7 distinct colors. You remember those colors? Yes. Now, after glass prisms, we also have water. Water also disperses white light. So we have got 2 materials which disperse light: glass prisms and then water. Are we together, boys and girls? Now, we want to talk about a prism. What do we mean by a prism? In science, we mean by a prism? A prism is a triangular glass which splits white light into 7 distinct colors of a spectrum. A triangular glass which splits white light into 7 distinct colors of a spectrum. That means that when white light passes through a prism, that white light refracts or it bends. Now, in the process of white light bending, the 7 colors end up separated and therefore forming a spectrum. Now, what is a prism? A triangular glass which splits white light into 7 distinct colors of a spectrum. Now, dispersion of white light by a prism. Let's just look at that. What happens to white light when it passes through a prism? This is what happens. If we have a prism and there is white light coming from, let me take that back. We have our prism and then there is white light coming from one side of that prism. What will happen is that white light will reduce its speed immediately it reaches the prism. And because of reduction in the speed, the light bends. It does not move straight the way it came, but instead it bends. Now, in the process of bending, remember we say that that white light contains 7 distinct colors. And it's those 7 distinct colors that make up what we call a spectrum. So, the white light bends. In the process of bending, the 7 colors of white light start being separated one at a time. Therefore, forming what we call a spectrum. Now, that is what we call a spectrum. Somebody is now telling me, hey, that one looks like something I know. Yes, you know that very well. Most of you know the name we can give to that. But for now, we are calling it a spectrum. A spectrum is that band of 7 distinct colors that make up white light. So that is what exactly happens. White light passes through a glass prism, then it is refracted. In the process of refraction, a spectrum is formed. But I want you to take note of the following. As a spectrum is being formed, the 7 colors bend at different angles. The 7 colors bend at different angles. What you need to know is each of those colors of a spectrum has got a different wavelength. It has got a different wavelength. Therefore, when you look at the colors of that spectrum, you find that red is appearing on top of the others. And below the other colors is a color that we call violet. Why does red appear on top? Red being the least refracted color gives it a reason for appearing on the top. Why does red appear on the top? Red is the least refracted color. When there is refraction of light, red bends last. Red is refracted last. That is why it appears on the top. Why does it appear on the top? It is refracted last, or it bends last. Then indigo appears at the bottom of other colors because it is the color that is most refracted. During refraction, it is the one that bends fast because of having one. It has the shortest wavelength. It has the shortest wavelength. Let us go to the next. We are saying, why does red appear on top of other colors in a spectrum? And I have said that red is the least refracted color. Red is the least refracted color. do you think red refracts least? Why is it that red does not refract more than other colors? The reason is simple. Red has the longest wavelength. When a color has a longer wavelength, that color refracts last. It refracts least. Okay? Then, I have talked about red being refracted least. And that's why it appears on top. Therefore, when you are naming colors of the spectrum, remember that red must be on top of the others. It must be the first, then other colors will follow in that order. We also have this question that why does violet appear at the bottom of other colors in a spectrum? That happens because violet is the most refracted color. Take note of the difference between violet and red. Red is the least refracted color, whereas violet is the most refracted color. So violet being the most refracted color, it forms a smaller angle of refraction than other colors. That's why, because of having the smallest angle of refraction, it ends up being at the bottom. Are we together, boys and girls? Why is violet the most refracted color? Violet is the most refracted color because it has the shortest wavelength. It has the shortest wavelength. Now, after talking about a spectrum, there is an example of a natural spectrum. This is a spectrum that we have all been knowing. All of you children know this spectrum. That spectrum is a rainbow. A rainbow is the only spectrum that appears in nature, and everyone can see it in the sky. Now, what is a rainbow? A rainbow is a natural spectrum formed when white light is split by raindrops. So what does that therefore mean? That a rainbow is formed, through dispersion of white light by raindrops, or you can say a rainbow is formed through splitting of white light by raindrops. Class, how is a rainbow formed? A rainbow is formed through dispersion of white light by raindrops. So what does that mean? That during a rainy day, I want you to take note of this. When it is raining, there are times when there is double. There is rain, it's drizzling somewhere, but at the same time, there is sunshine in the environment. So when there is drizzling of rain, the rain is drizzling, and there is also sunshine. What does that mean therefore? That as the white light from the sun passes through the raindrops disperse or spread the colors of white light. The raindrops spread the colors of white light. The raindrops split the colors of white light. Now, when the colors of white light are split in the sky or in the atmosphere, each color ends up being bent. And in the process of bending, it forms what we call a rainbow. That's why I say that a rainbow is a natural spectrum. It is an example of a natural spectrum. Or it is an example of a spectrum in nature. What do you need to know here, children? Take note of this. How is a rainbow formed? A rainbow is formed through dispersion of white light by raindrops. Let us look at the diagram of a rainbow. Diagram of a rainbow. That is exactly how our rainbow looks like. It is a natural spectrum. It is formed through dispersion of white light by raindrops. and it has all the colors of a spectrum. The first color on top, from the top, the first color on top is red, followed by orange, followed by yellow, followed by green, we have blue, we have indigo, and lastly we have violet. Children, what are the colors that make up a rainbow? Together go red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. That is great. So, that is what we call a rainbow. So, I want you to take note of the following questions. 1. What is dispersion of light? 2. Take note of how a rainbow is formed and how a spectrum is formed. And take note of the colors of a spectrum. So, dear candidates, I would like to thank you for listening to me and for following this lesson online. But what I want to ask you today is to actually take the work we are giving you seriously. Do everything we are asking you to do. And remember, above all, remember to write well. Produce excellent work. Produce neat work. Because at the end of the day, when schools are open, we shall expect you to present all the work as it was given. We love you as your teachers, and we ask you to stay safe.